Good day, everyone. Today I will be presenting to you a completed qualitative research entitled Mapping of K-10 Most Essential Learning Competencies in Probability and Statistics. This is Gratela, a PhD Math Ed student of Sorsogon State University. This presentation is divided into 4 parts: the introduction, methodology, results and discussion, and the last, conclusion and recommendation. Statistics in the 21st century have been confronted with many challenges. Problems arises primarily in response to COVID-19 pandemic, to national reforms in educational systems, emerging global standards and desired learning outcomes for students, and the dynamic nature of statistics as a discipline in the face of evolving innovations in information and communication technologies. Prior to the emergence of the pandemic, statistics is one of the important branches of mathematics already faced with global issues and concerns. Tishkovskaya and Lancaster, 2012, summarized and classified into 3 domains the teaching and learning statistics problems, which were also supported and can be traced among several relevant studies globally. One of which is the teaching and learning of statistics as a discipline, where it involves the following identified problems: statistics anxiety, negative attitude towards statistics, probability in statistics are very difficult for students to learn, and statistics courses are often taught without connection to other subject area. Among the problems enumerated, there are still factors unlisted that greatly affect the teaching and learning of statistics, one of which are the issues and concerns in the basic education curriculum that needs also to be addressed and must undergo transformation for the better. Moreover, Braza and Supapo, 2014, enumerated problems in the implementation of K-12 mathematics curriculum. These problems can be categorized into 4. These are professional development of teachers, overcrowded curriculum, lack of instructional materials, and teaching and learning of statistics. In the Philippine K-10 mathematics curriculum, there are many challenges that Filipino mathematics teachers are facing when it comes to the teaching of statistics. Joe 2020 stressed that K-10 mathematics curriculum needs revision since the curriculum failed to decongest the distribution of the content and learning competencies. Statistics and probability is one of the content areas that usually discussed at 4th quarter in the spiral design of the curriculum. It is a strand that focuses more on developing skills in collecting, organizing data using charts, tables, and graphs, understanding, analyzing, and interpreting data, dealing with uncertainty, and making predictions about outcomes. The Undersecretary for Curriculum Instruction, Diosdado M. San Antonio, of the Department of Education, issued a memorandum suggesting the strategies in implementing distance learning delivery modalities for school year 2020 to 2021. The 4 modalities were identified, such as modular distance learning, online distance learning, TV video radio-based instruction, and the blended distance learning. The implementation of these learning modalities was to prevent the face-to-face classes, preventing the threat of contagion. Thus led to the so-called term New Normal of Education, as mentioned by Secretary Leonor Briones and the press released. The suggested distance learning delivery modalities by the Philippine Department of Education, the Schools Division of Sorsogon in Bicol Region implemented the modular distance learning modality as a result on the learners' enrollment in Survey 4. Self-learning modules from the Department of Education Regional Office was the primary learning material used in delivering instruction. It was then later converted into learning activity sheets mandated by the regional office to be prepared by every teacher. However, during the pandemic education school year 2020-2021, learning competencies in statistics and probability was not reached, nor even tackled, and no materials were made for it, whether self-learning modules nor learning activity sheets, as feedback from informants of this study. This article examined the K-10 most essential learning competencies in statistics and probability, backed up with perceptions and experiences of mathematics teachers in elementary and secondary level. It sought to compare the most essential learning competencies from the K-10 mathematics curriculum. Moreover, the result of this study will also provide a reflective description regarding the issues and concerns in teaching the subject. This study utilized the critical qualitative approach of evaluating the Philippine K-10 mathematics curriculum and most essential learning competencies in statistics and probability. Habermas 1972 stated that critical qualitative research uncovers, examines, and critiques the social assumptions where it queries the framework where learning takes place, including foundations that shape educational practice. Moreover, this study also employed curriculum mapping as a method of analysis defined by Uchiyama and Radin 2008, a procedure that creates a visual representation of curriculum based on real-time information. For the specific objectives of this study, 1. Compare the content topics of K-10 mathematics curriculum with the most essential learning competencies in statistics and probability. It sought to answer the question, how are the content topics reduced? While the method of analysis used was curriculum review in examining the documents which are the MELC and the K-10 mathematics curriculum. For number 2, determine the gaps in the MELC across grade level along with A. Lesson continuity, B. Lesson congestion. Questions to answer were, how are the lessons arranged across grade level? Do the content topics arrange in increasing complexity? Is there a reduction of lessons in the MELC? Curriculum mapping and unstructured interview among teacher informants were used as a method of analysis in making the matrix of mapping as an instrument. Lastly, integrate the identified competence gap in the teaching towards lesson continuity across grade level. Question to answer was how to fill in the identified gap in the proposed lesson. Development and validation of the lessons are the method of analysis, while curriculum map was used as an instrument. Informants of this study were identified using purposive sampling in which 12 teacher participants, 5 in elementary and 7 in secondary, expressed their intention to take part in the entire research process through informed consent, all residing in the vicinity of Bicol region, Philippines, and still in the service, having all experienced the pandemic education school year 2020-2021 and the present. The data gathering procedure of teachers' feedbacks and experiences were determined through electronic questionnaire interviews using Google Forms and validated through unstructured interviews. The curriculum review and curriculum mapping were utilized in this study. These were methods of analysis used for curricular evaluation to determine whether there is an existence of inconsistencies, gaps, or issues on continuity of lessons, which serve as a basis for curricular recommendations backed up with perceptions and experiences of teacher participants of this study. Figure 1 shows the mapping of statistics and probability content topics of K-10 mathematics curriculum vis-a-vis most essential learning competencies. It can be gleaned from the figure that all topics in MELC overlap with the K-10 mathematics curriculum. There are 15 content topics, shown in blue boxes, that were present in the old curriculum that was removed, and what remained were rationalized into the most essential learning competencies in statistics and probability. Meanwhile, grade 7 has the most topics covered, comprises of 15 out of 25 content topics. In kindergarten, the only content topic which was on data collection was removed. Thus, it is assumed that there were no essential competencies designated for this level. Content topics comprised of learning competencies, hence it is directly connected. Moreover, content topics for grade 3 and grade 8 were none removed and none merged. Based on the initial report of the researcher, content topics as well as learning competencies from K-10 mathematics curriculum were just reduced, none merged, and none added. Among the 5 content areas, statistics and probability has the least content topic, composed of 25 out of 269 topics, and which is usually seen in the 4th quarter of the curriculum guide. This is according to Joe 2020. In statistics and probability, the K-stage standard designated in probability as its last content topic were traced in the most essential learning competencies. Table 1 shows the sample progression of lesson in probability in MELC. In lower elementary, the K concept in probability is about predicting outcomes and was seen evidently from the sample learning competency. Tells whether an event is sure, likely, equally likely, unlikely, and impossible to happen. From grade 3. In upper elementary, centered in simple experiment and experimental probability. Moreover, in grades 7 to 10, the highlighted standard is more on solving probability, as shown in the sample competencies in Table 1. Competencies from lower years serve as a basic prerequisite skill needed for the student to be prepared for the succeeding grade levels. It can be gleaned that the spiral progression approach of the curriculum is vertically coherent, particularly in statistics and probability. The learning competencies taught per grade level were increasing in difficulties, which can be considered as one of the best features of the spiral curriculum. Table 2 shows the distribution of learning competencies between K-10 mathematics curriculum and MELC in statistics and probability. It highlights that the competencies from kindergarten and grades 1 to 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 were reduced, while in grades 3, 8, and 9 retained. From 89 competencies in the K-10 mathematics curriculum, narrowed down into 66 competencies in the most essential learning competencies. It can be gleaned that the overcrowded learning competencies of the K-10 mathematics curriculum were decongested, assuming that this is one of the actions taken to address issues in the basic education curriculum, particularly in statistics and probability. Some of the competencies were removed because of its redundancy as one of the main reasons. Spiral progression approach defined as a course of study in which students will see the same topics throughout their school career, with each encounter increasing in complexity and reinforcing previous learning. However, shown in Figure 2 that in grade 9, no learning competencies included. This served as a primary gap within and across the curriculum. Feedback from all teacher informants when it comes to challenges and problems encountered before the pandemic in teaching probability in statistics can be categorized into 3. 1. Lack of prerequisite skills of learners. 2. Time frame in teaching the subject. 3. Congested curriculum. While during the pandemic, 1. The unpacking of MELC. 2. Instruction and lesson delivery. 3. Lack of instructional materials. Given the implemented learning delivery mode as modular distance learning modality, informants of this study revealed that they employ different techniques and supplementary modalities on how they teach the content. Supplementary to the self-learning modules or learning activity sheets given, intervention was made such as home visitation, online and offline monitoring, making video lessons, mentoring, and even teleconferencing conducted to ensure the learning of students. One way to bridge the learning gap between kindergarten, grade 8, and grade 10 is to integrate competencies in statistics and probability within the lessons in grade 9 mathematics whenever possible. The researcher then proposed a conceptual framework allowing an integration of competencies to establish continuity of lesson across grade level, shown in Figure 3. The proposed framework includes 3 features. The first one stands for the learning competencies, where it composed of 2 categories, one of which is the most essential learning competencies in grade 9 mathematics. The other category of learning competencies is the selected learning competencies in probability and statistics. This includes competencies from the previous grade levels in probability and statistics that can be integrated within the lesson in grade 9 mathematics. The integration of competencies can be in any of the content topics and K competencies, provided, however, that it provides bearing and connections to the actual math in grade 9 mathematics. The next feature is the unpacking of math into learning objectives. As mandated by the Department of Education, teachers are encouraged to unpack the most essential learning competencies into learning objectives to address the varying needs of the learners. And then the last feature is the teaching and learning activities. It involves activities that will cater the needs of the learners, anchored from the two learning competencies broken down into simpler objectives. With this conceptual framework, gaps across grade level may be bridged, enabling the learners to be prepared for the higher level of lessons in probability and statistics in grade 10. Here are the conclusion and recommendation that corresponds with the specific objectives of this study. For the conclusion, in objective number 1, the most essential learning competencies was the simplified form of K-10 mathematics curriculum. Content topics as well as learning competencies from the K-10 mathematics curriculum in statistics and probability were reduced, non-merged and non-added, to cope up with the present educational crisis brought by the pandemic and due to some redundancies. The most essential learning competencies was seen as a good initiative in decongesting the overcrowded K-10 mathematics curriculum. As per recommendation, the identified most essential learning competencies in probability and statistics may be used by curriculum implementers even when distance learning is lifted. For the conclusion for objective number 2, the learning competencies taught per grade level were increasing in difficulties, which can be considered as one of the best features of the spiral curriculum. Learning competencies in statistics and probability were narrowed down from 89 down to 66. However, gaps are still seen along lesson continuity across grade level, particularly in grade 9. As per recommendation, this paper recommends for educational authorities and researchers to further explore how the identified content topics in probability and statistics were taught across grade levels. Lastly, for the conclusion that corresponds to the objective number 3, the proposed conceptual framework allowing the integration of competencies and activities in statistics and probability along the lesson in grade 9 were proposed. This was to bridge the gap in the teaching towards lesson continuity across grade level. As per recommendation, the proposed conceptual framework allowing the integration of competencies and activities in statistics and probability along the lesson in grade 9 may be used. That's it, we're done. And here's my reference.